My name is Ruth. I'm 102 years old, and I eat the same 5 foods almost every day. Not because I'm strict, not because I read somewhere that they would make me live longer, but because over time I learned something simple. My body tells me what it needs if I'm quiet enough to listen. People ask me all the time what I eat. They expect something unusual, something complicated, some rare ingredient or special combination. But what I eat is very ordinary. That's the part that surprises them, because they believe longevity must come from something extraordinary. But most of my life has been built on ordinary things done consistently, and food is no different. The first food I eat almost every day is eggs, not prepared in a special way, sometimes boiled, sometimes lightly cooked in a pan. Nothing fancy, just eggs. I started eating them regularly in my 40s, not for health reasons, but because they were simple, easy to prepare, easy to digest, and they kept me full in a steady way. I noticed something over time. When I ate eggs in the morning, my energy didn't rise and fall quickly. It stayed even. I wasn't looking for that at first, but I felt it. And when you feel something consistently, you begin to trust it. There were years when people said eggs were not good, that they should be avoided, and I listened for a while. I stopped eating them, and I noticed something. I didn't feel better. I felt different, less steady. So I went back to what I knew, what my body had already told me. That's something I learned early. Advice changes, opinions change, but your body's response is consistent if you pay attention. The second food I eat almost every day is rice. Plain, sometimes with a little salt, sometimes with something else beside it, but always simple. Rice has been part of my life since I was young, not because it was considered healthy, because it was available. It was what we had, and I never saw a reason to remove it. Over time, I noticed something about rice. It doesn't disturb the body. It doesn't make you feel heavy if you eat it in the right amount. It doesn't create sudden changes in how you feel. It's steady. And steadiness is something I have learned to value more than anything else. People often look for foods that give them a quick boost, something that makes them feel different right away. But I learned to appreciate foods that don't disturb the body, foods that let you remain balanced. That's what rice has always done for me. The third food I eat every day is vegetables. Not a specific kind, whatever is available, whatever is in season, cooked simply, not covered in sauces or made complicated. Just vegetables. When I was younger, vegetables were not something we thought about in terms of health. They were just part of the meal. But looking back now, I see how important they were. They kept everything in my body moving the way it should. Light, regular, uncomplicated. I never forced myself to eat them. I just never stopped, and that made the difference. The fourth food I eat every day is fruit. Not in large amounts, just enough. An apple, a banana, sometimes something softer depending on what I can manage. Fruit has always felt gentle. It doesn't demand anything from the body. It doesn't weigh you down. It gives you something light, something clean. And at my age, that matters, because the body doesn't want to work harder than it needs to. It wants ease, and fruit gives that. The fifth food I eat every day is something people don't expect: warm broth. Not always with meat, sometimes just water with vegetables cooked in it. Something simple, something warm. I started doing this in my later years, not as a plan, just because it felt right. And I noticed something. Warm food calms the body. It settles the stomach. It relaxes something inside you. And that calm feeling carries through the day. I didn't realize how important that was until I got older, because as you age, your body becomes more sensitive to what you eat, to how you eat, to how things feel after you eat. And warm, simple food makes everything easier. These 5 foods are not special. They are not rare. They are not designed for longevity. But they have been consistent. And consistency matters more than anything else, because the body does not respond to what you eat once. It responds to what you eat every day. And what I learned over time is this: it's not about finding the perfect food. It's about finding what your body accepts and not changing it constantly. But there is more to this, because it's not just what I eat, it's how I learn to eat, and why that matters even more. I didn't always understand how important how I eat would become. When I was younger, eating was just something you did between everything else. You worked, you moved, you handled your responsibilities, and somewhere in between, you ate, sometimes quickly, sometimes without even noticing what you were tasting. And for many years, I lived that way, not carelessly, just without attention. But as I grew older, my body became more honest with me. It stopped hiding things. If something didn't sit well, I felt it. If I ate too quickly, I noticed it. If I ate more than I needed, I carried it for hours. And that's when I began changing something simple. I slowed down when I ate. Not as a rule, just as a response. I gave myself time to sit, time to chew, time to actually feel the food, not just finish it. And that one change did more than I expected. Because when you slow down, your body has time to respond. It tells you when you've had enough. It tells you what feels right. But if you rush, you miss those signals. And over time, missing those signals creates problems. Small ones at first, but they grow. I also stopped eating when I wasn't truly hungry. That may sound obvious, but many people don't realize how often they eat for other reasons: boredom, habit, emotion, just because it's time. I used to do that too. Eat because it was part of the day, not because my body asked for it. But as I got older, I began listening more closely. If I wasn't hungry, I waited. If I was, I ate. Simple. And that simplicity made a difference. because the body doesn't need constant input. It needs the right input at the right time. Another thing I learned was not to confuse fullness with satisfaction. There is a difference. Fullness is physical. Satisfaction is something deeper. You can eat until you are full and still feel like something is missing. Or you can eat a simple meal and feel completely settled. I learned to look for that settled feeling, not just the absence of hunger, but the presence of calm. When I felt that, I knew I had eaten enough. That kind of awareness doesn't come from rules. It comes from paying attention over time. And that's what most people don't do. Not because they don't care, because they are distracted. There is always something else pulling their attention away. So they eat quickly, move on quickly, and the body never gets a chance to communicate properly. I also never complicated my meals. That's something I stayed consistent with for decades. Simple combinations, foods I recognized, nothing layered with too many ingredients or flavors that confused my sense of what I was eating. Because when food becomes too complicated, you stop understanding how your body responds to it. You don't know what helped and what didn't. So I kept things simple, not out of discipline, out of clarity. Clarity makes it easier to listen, and listening is what guided me. There is something else I noticed over the years. People often change their diet too often. They follow one idea for a while, then another, always adjusting, always trying something new. But the body doesn't respond well to constant change. It prefers consistency, familiarity, a steady rhythm. I never changed my food drastically. I adjusted slightly, over time, but I didn't start over again and again. And that steadiness gave my body something it could rely on. At 102, I don't think about food in terms of rules. I think about it in terms of relationship. How does this feel? How does my body respond? What makes my day easier, not harder? That is how I decide, not based on trends, not based on what people say is best, based on what has proven itself over time. And time is the only thing you can truly trust, because it reveals what lasts and what doesn't. There is one more thing I need to say, something that matters just as much as the food itself, and most people overlook it completely. If this feels simple, it's because it is, and that's exactly why it works. There is one more thing I need to tell you, and it has very little to do with the food itself. It has to do with how you live around it, because food is not separate from your life. It is part of your rhythm, and if your life has no rhythm, your body feels that, no matter what you eat. At 102, I don't think of my meals as isolated moments. I think of them as part of the day's flow. There is a time to eat, a time to rest, a time to move, a time to be still. Nothing overlaps too much. Nothing rushes into the next thing. That space between things matters. When you eat in the middle of stress, your body feels it. When you eat while thinking about 10 other things, your body feels it. When you eat and immediately move on without pause, your body doesn't have time to settle. I learned to give my meals space, not a long time, just enough to sit, enough to let the food settle before I stood up again. That small pause changed how my body handled everything. Digestion felt easier. Energy felt steadier. There was less strain, and less strain over time makes a difference. There is also something else people don't think about. How you feel when you eat matters just as much as what you eat. If you are tense, your body is tense. If you are rushed, your body is rushed. If you are calm, your body responds differently. I didn't always eat in calm moments. Life doesn't always allow that. But when I could, I chose calm. And over time, that became my habit. That calm became part of how my body expected to receive food. And that expectation matters. Because the body learns patterns. It learns what to expect, and it responds accordingly. There is something else I've noticed in people over the years. They treat food like a problem to solve, always trying to get it right, always trying to fix something, and that mindset creates tension. Even around eating, I never lived that way. Food was never a problem for me. It was part of life, simple, familiar, reliable. And that relationship made everything easier because I wasn't constantly adjusting, constantly questioning, constantly searching for something better. I stayed with what worked, and what worked stayed. At 102, I don't eat more than I need. I don't eat less than I need. I eat enough. And that word, enough, has guided more of my life than anything else. Enough food, enough movement, enough rest, enough thought. Not too much, not too little, just enough. Because too much creates strain, too little creates weakness, but enough creates balance, and balance is what carries you forward. When I look back now, I don't see my life as something I controlled carefully. I see it as something I listened to. My body spoke quietly through how I felt, through what worked, through what didn't. And I listened, not perfectly, but consistently. That is what shaped my life more than anything else. Not a perfect diet, not a special food, not a hidden secret, just attention, over time, repeated. At 102, I am not strong in the way I once was. I am not fast. I am not capable of everything I used to do. But I am steady, and steadiness comes from balance, and balance comes from living in a way that your body understands. If I could leave you with one thing, it would be this. Stop searching for the perfect food. Start noticing what your body accepts and stay with it, because what you repeat becomes you, and over time, that becomes your life. If this made you think about your own habits, even quietly, then you're already closer than you realize. Thank you for watching this video. Click here to watch another video that might interest you.